everyone, what's going on? On November 8th, we got the death of Alex Trebek, and this is interesting for a number of reasons, because if you've been following this channel since around the end of 2016 into the year 2017, you'd know that there was a major important thing going on around that time, which hopefully I'll explain as this video goes along. But Jeopardy is something that has been very important to this esoteric knowledge that I talk about on this channel. And it recently came back up due to some synchronicity that I had with an old friend that I used to make rap beats with. And I'll explain that as we get going here, but when that happened, when the synchronicity happened back in October, it led me to think when Sean Connery died that there was something important to Alex Trebek. And also, if you've ever watched Celebrity Jeopardy, I think of Sean Connery. When I think of Sean Connery, and it's instantly the first thing I think of is Celebrity Jeopardy, and how there's numerous times where, Sean Connery made the joke about Alex Trebek dying. He even said, had the suck it Trebek and so on. And when Sean Connery died on Halloween, I even mentioned how Alex Trebek was synced up to what I was talking about with it. And then lo and behold, a week later, here's the death of Alex Trebek. And, recall that I also said that Sean Connery was a guy to watch out for this year back on April 10th. And I talked about how he was connected to the moon. And this year's an important year to the moon because it's the 51st anniversary of the moon landing. And in the practice of gematria, the coding of letters into numbers, the word moon equals 51. And so does the word conspiracy, and so does, think about Area 51 and much, much more. But talked about him being synced up to the moon, and he's a guy to watch out for. And then lo and behold, he dies on Halloween, which was the night of a full blue moon, the first full blue moon that could be seen all over the world since World War II. So Sean Connery dies, and then I mentioned how Alex Trebek is synced up to it. He even talked about the suck at Trebek. It makes me wonder even more about him because Connery died 204 days after my post and 103 days after the moon landing, and Alex Trebek and gematria equals 103 and 204. So I just want to point this out, and even back on October 17th, I also mentioned Jeopardy because YouTube restricted one of my old videos. I was trying to think about, there was something important, and let's just go back and look at Alex Trebek really quick. Look at some very simple things. There's a lot to explain, and sometimes it gets overwhelming because I even have to go back and rethink about some of the events and things that have happened in my life. And it's a good thing that I blog about that because I can't remember everything because it's just so much to remember. But anyway, let's just look at some of the things with Alex Trebek. So Alex Trebek, he dies on November 8th, which is a lot like 118, right? 11/8. He just so happens to die from cancer. In gematria, cancer equals 118. And they also have articles saying that his final episode is going to be airing on Christmas Day this year, which just so happens to be a span of 1 month and 18 days after the day that he died. So the final episode is going to air 1 month, 18 days after he died on 11/8 of cancer that equals 118. And when I start talking about the synchronicity later on, it's very interesting that the synchronicity happened with my friend who I used to write rap beats for, and his birthday just so happens to be March 5th, and oddly enough, 11/8 to his birthday is a span of 118 days. But I'll get back to him and explain that as we move, but I figured I would look up Jeopardy just to see, maybe, when the season began and so on, and somebody went on Wikipedia and vandalized it, and they wrote, the series finale is set to air on November 20th, 2020. And I thought this was kind of interesting because I was like, that doesn't seem right, But somebody had went on there and vandalized it, and they wrote in a very specific date, because it just so happens to be Joe Biden's birthday. And, Joe Biden, they just announced that Joe Biden was going to be the 46th president and so on, right? And of course, Joe Biden's the second Catholic person that's going to be the president. The word Catholic equals 46. JFK, died at the age of 46. He was the 35th president. The word Catholic also equals 35. Of course, Beau Biden died at the age of 46, and a whole lot more, Joe Biden's also synced up to the Jesuits, which is a major theme that is going on, and oddly enough, at the end of 2016 into 2017, my uncle had died in a mysterious car crash, and I talked about how it was synced up to the Jesuits, and all of 2017, I talked about how the Jesuits were important, and I said how 2017 is synced up to the year 2020, and the Jesuits are very, very important to coronavirus, and much, much more that I've covered previously. It's too much to re-explain, but Joe Biden's birthday is 312 days before the Jesuit anniversary, and, Pope Francis's real name, Jorge Mario Bergoglio, that equals 312, and can't remember it all. Ignatius of Loyola, he became, can't even remember it. His birthday was like December 12th or 3rd, 312, and he became a saint on March 12th, 312, and there was a whole lot of other things. Even North Korea was synced up to it, such as the Korean War that lasted 3 years, 1 month, and 2 days, and Kim Jong-un, he became the leader when his father died on Pope Francis's birthday. And Kim Jong-un, his birthday is January 8th, which is 3 months and 12 days after the Jesuit anniversary. So there's definitely a lot of interesting things here. But November 20th, Joe Biden's birthday. And, this is purposely done. They do these things on purpose. I guarantee you that I was supposed to see this. And the reason it stuck out to me so much was because Kamala Harris just so happens to be, the vice presidential candidate, and her birthday, or they announced her as the vice president candidate on August 8th, which can be written as 11/8, just like how the word cancer equals 118. But it's even more interesting because I've been following this Major Charles Manson theme, which also began around the same time I started covering Jeopardy in the beginning of 2017. But in these Francis Bacon ciphers, if you write out Kamala Harris, her name just so happens to equal 164 and also 264. And if you look at my stuff about James Bond and Alec and Sean Connery dying, it's all about these numbers, right? And I even mentioned that in my post where I talked about Alex Trebek being important to Sean Connery. Sean Connery, 164. I talked about how I've been seeing the number 164 a whole lot, and I don't know what it means, but I know that it's important. So, Kamala Harris, 164 and 264. Sean Connery, 164, 264. James Bond, 164. Daniel Craig, 164. Pierce Brosnan, 264. Roger George Moore equals 264. He's the only James Bond that went to the moon in the film Moonraker. So there's something definitely important to it, how it syncs up to Kamala Harris. I've even talked about how the Batman shooting was important because the previews for that movie, it was in Aurora, Colorado, but the previews showed the word Aurora on the Aurora Plaza in China, and that was in the movie Skyfall, the James Bond movie. Skyfall equals 86, Kamala Harris equals 86. 2022, Tisha B'Av begins on 8/6, so I don't know. I've covered a lot of this previously, but if you go from 8/6 to 11/8, it's also 94 days. Jeopardy equals 94. And when they announced Kamala Harris, it was right around the same time that wrestler Kamala died as well. The odds. But when we started really following Tisha B'Av, and the importance was in 2019, and it had all to do with the date of August 11th, which is the same day that Kamala Harris was announced as the vice president candidate. So it's also interesting that Alex Trebek died a span of 110 days after his birthday, and in Gematria, the word president equals 110. Let's type it out here. President 110. This is why Donald Trump supposedly got coronavirus 110 days after his birthday, and 110 days before Inauguration Day on January 20th. And, you know, in these Francis Bacon ciphers, the word Jesuit just so happens to equal 110. The Jesuits are a major theme this year. You know, think about Inauguration Day, that's even on 20/1, right? Pope Francis's real name also equals 201. Jorge Mario Bergoglio, 312, 201. He stays in Suite 201, you know, the guest room at the Vatican. Instead of actually where most of the popes stay, he stays in Suite 201. And it's called the Domus Sanctae Marte that equals 201 in Gematria. You know, he's the first Jesuit pope. Remember when he visited the United States and he left Philadelphia on the night of the 4th blood moon of the Tetrad, and it just so happened to be on the Jesuit anniversary. Philadelphia also equals 201, and these Francis Bacon ciphers. Philadelphia 201. You know, I don't think it's a coincidence. 201 is also important too. Bill Gates, right? Bill Gates hosting the, what was it? Event 201. That was 56 days before the first case of coronavirus is traced back to, and so on, right? Coronavirus 56, toilet paper 56, Anthony Fauci equals 56, unemployment equals 56. That's why the WHO said to get ready for a pandemic on the 56th day of the year. And, you know, the list goes on, you know. Gavin Newsom, the California governor, said that 56% of Californians are going to get coronavirus in the next 8 weeks. Of course, Gavin Newsom equals 56, and 8 weeks is 56 days. And, you know, how would it be so specific? 56%. Countless other things, you know. The South Korea, what was it, Starbucks, that supposedly 56 people got coronavirus at, right? The South Korea Starbucks, and South Korea equals 56. They just announced that 56 NFL players have got the coronavirus since November. They just had that Pfizer thing, right? Where the guy in Pfizer, he sold $5.6 million in stocks, right? I mean, it's just ridiculous. Society of Jesus equals 56. Anyway, let's move on a little bit. I want to explain this synchronicity because it's very important. And, you know, I've learned a whole lot since the events of 2000, you know, I was talking about Jeopardy at the end of 2016 into 2017. And it's interesting because, you know, I've learned a ton about these Francis Bacon and Frank Bacona ciphers and how they are definitely telling me a whole nother story. And it's showing me how all of the things back then were related. And the reason I know that it's important is because way back then, we only knew the frontwards method of Gematria. We didn't know reverse Gematria at the time. And we learned reverse Gematria after all of that stuff had happened. And let me just kind of briefly explain a little bit what was going on. So, I was making a whole bunch of videos about Jeopardy being scripted because there was this lady named Cindy Stowell that was on Jeopardy who supposedly had cancer and whatnot. And a lot of the episodes, you could just tell they were like scripted it out. Like, she said, "What is an excavator?" And Alex Trebek, like, he's like, "No, let's go to the judges." And then he said, "We were looking for Earth Mover, you know, Earth Mover 53, just like Cindy Stowell." And then like excavator, however you spell it. It also equals 53 of this reverse method that I later learned, right? And she ended up losing to a guy named Sam, like, Scoville or something like that. Can't remember what it was, but how to spell his name, but his name equaled 53. And she died 16 days before the final episode of her airing was, and the 16th prime number just so happens to be 53. There's tons of stuff with this lady named Cindy Stowell in Jeopardy, so I knew Jeopardy was somehow scripted. Of course, Alex Trebek in Gematria also equals the same as Jeopardy. His name equaled 40. Jeopardy equals 40. And a little bit later after this, I learned all kinds of stuff about reverse Gematria. You know, look at how Jeopardy equals 122. Think about Ken Jennings, the guy who, you know, really famous for Jeopardy and so on. His name equals 122. I'm pretty sure he even lost on Jeopardy like 122 days before his birthday or something like that. Can't remember, or maybe it was 175, but it's absolutely synced up. And, you know, look at Steve Harvey. He hosts Family Feud. Notice his name's 51 in reverse. Family Feud equals 51. Jeff Foxworthy, he equals the same as Are You Smarter Than the Fifth Grader? Drew Carey equals the same as The Price is Right. Many, many more. Even a month after this or so, the host of Idiot Test decided to start following me on Twitter. He became my 114th follower, which seems really weird that the host of a TV game show would be following me on Twitter. Like, who am I, you know? But notice how Idiot Test equals 38, and his name was Ben Glebe. That equals 38, and he was 38 years old when he started following me on Twitter, and, you know, this kind of kept building up some things because I learned a lot more about the Jesuits and so on because of this, because the word idiot equals 78, and my and his birthdays are like 7 months and 8 days apart. The word Jesuit equals 78, and there was a major theme going on with the Jesuits that kind of began around this same time that I was talking about, because my Uncle Barney, he died in a mysterious car crash. Like, he was coming home from Minnesota, and he went 5 miles off the main highway in the wrong direction on a gravel road, and somehow, like, for some reason was out there, and he wrecked, and they had to, like, ping his cell phone to find where he was, and then he ended up dying at the Jesuit Hospital of Creighton the very next day. And on that very next day, I also got an express-shipped letter in the mail where they spent $25 to send me that letter, and they put $300 in it and basically told me to believe in God and quit making these videos. And, you know, there's a lot of fishy things. My uncle was a 4th-degree Knight of Columbus, and, you know, Columbus Day, Columbus supposedly discovered America on the date of 10/12, and this number was really important. It made me look up The Simpsons, Season 10, Episode 12. It just so happened to be the only episode with Dan Marino. And my uncle had just gave me this Dan Marino jersey. And there was this big theme with the Miami Dolphins and Flipper, which was important to why reverse gematria was learned around the same time, because they flipped the script of the Super Bowl, you know, flipped gematria and so on. But that Dan Marino episode was the Atlanta Falcons won the Super Bowl in that episode, or they either won or they lost. I can't remember. They were in that episode. They were in that episode, and my uncle died just before the town Otobote, Iowa, where the mascot is the Falcon, and the Falcons went on to the Super Bowl, and much, much more. I even talked about how there was a major Jesus, Jesuit, Knights of Columbus theme going on around this time, and I even mentioned the key of David being important, and how Jesus, who was the carpenter, was supposed to have the key of David. And the very next day, the mainstream media article in the sports news was that the player Keon Carpenter died, the ex-Atlanta Falcons player, right? Keon Carpenter. Oddly enough, his name equals 224. And I'm going to talk about this number as we move along, but what in the world? It's crazy. This is like probably the biggest number I'm going to be talking about throughout the rest of this video. And his name equaled 224 in reverse, huh? But it's so hard to explain, but this guy named James Jumper, he started making a blog that was mocking my blog, and he referred to me as Nad on there, my name in reverse. D-A-N is Nad. And, you know, then we learned reverse gematria, and his name equals 166 in reverse gematria. If you write out reverse gematria, it equals 166. My Uncle Barney's name, his name equals 166. His wife was Betty. Betty, Barney, the Flintstones. When you look at the Flintstones, they aired 166 episodes. They were named after a TV show called The Honeymooners. If you just write Honeymooners, that equaled 166. I also learned that he was the one who gave me that Dan Marino jersey at the Gold Slipper, this restaurant in town, the Gold Slipper 166. I asked my mom what my uncle's birthday was. She said it was July 23rd. And the day that I asked her, I was at the Gold Slipper where she was working. And it just so happened to be 166 days after his birthday. And then he went on to die like 10 days later or so. So there was definitely this big thing going on, right? And it was all connected to God and the Jesuits and the Knights of Columbus. My uncle, he was a 4th degree Knight of Columbus, like I said, but look at Knights of Columbus equal 215. He died 2 months and 15 days before the Knight of Columbus establishment anniversary. Of course, the date 10/12, think about it, 10/12, Christopher Columbus, Knights of Columbus. That's also the day that Aleister Crowley was born. It's also the day that my Uncle Barney's father, my grandpa, who died before I was born, that's also his birthday. And of course, his name was Eugene Murphy, who equals 166 in gematria. Also interesting to note that my Uncle Barney's first sibling to die was Kelly Murphy. He died in the same year that Pope Francis became the Pope, and his name equals 166. And he died 191 days before or after his birthday. And that's also interesting because Society of Jesus equals 191. And my Uncle Barney's full name, Bernard Allen Murphy, equals 191. And he died 191 days before his birthday. So it's like, it's just craziness, you know, there's all of these things. My other uncle, my Uncle Mike, he died in between Kelly and Barney. Mike Murphy. His name in these Francis Bacon ciphers equals 191. And his name in the non-Francis Bacon ciphers, Mike Murphy, equals 139. And he died 139 days before the Jesuit anniversary. You know, it's just craziness. And he was also a Knight of Columbus, and it was the first time I realized that my Uncle Barney was a Knight of Columbus at his funeral. He also died on the same day as the Philadelphia train wreck, which was the 132nd day of the year in 2015, which was important to Pope Francis's visit and the movie Trainwreck that came out later that summer, and so on, right? The Philadelphia train wreck that happened at 9:23 p.m. in Philadelphia, obviously. Pope Francis left the United States from Philadelphia. Philadelphia is also mentioned, you know, in the Bible with the Key of David and so on, right? And I don't know, there's just something important to it. 132, Catholic Church equals 132. That train wreck was on the 132nd day of the year. The word cancer also equals 132. He died from cancer. Of course, there's much more. My Uncle Clancy, he then died after the Super Bowl in 2018, and my grandma, these guys' mom, she died on September 24th of 2017, the day after Trump called out the kneeling, and she died on Eagle Street. And my Uncle Clancy, who died right after the Eagles won the Super Bowl, one of his sons was the only Eagles fan I know, and a whole lot more that I've explained in other videos. But my grandma was supposedly from Flintstone, Georgia, according to her obituary, even though I was always told she was from Chattanooga, Tennessee. Apparently Flintstone is like, you know, right outside of Chattanooga or whatever, but Flintstone, Betty, and Barney. Oddly enough, my Aunt Betty just so happened to die on February 5th of 2020. And just before she died, I blogged about how there's something important to her and how it's connected to Barney, because a big thing was going around about the Simpsons and how the Simpsons predicted the 49ers to be in the Super Bowl, and it just so happened to be the episode Sunday, Cruddy Sunday, which is Season 10, Episode 12, the same one I talked about with my uncle, and people were saying that the red team was the San Francisco 49ers, but they were actually the Atlanta Falcons, the episode I was talking about, with the only one with Dan Marino and so on. And then, of course, my Aunt Betty dies on February 5th, right around the same time as the Super Bowl, and she even died 9 months and 4 days before Alex Trebek, and the word Jeopardy equals 94 in Gematria. Also, my aunt, in that blog post, I'll get to this too as we move along, but she's really important to the number 416. Like, her and Barney had a daughter who died, and I believe, I can't remember it all, I'll have to look at my blog post, but she died like on 416 or something like that. I'll just, whatever, but 416 is Pope Benedict's birthday. And, you know, Pope Benedict resigned, and then Pope Francis became the Pope, and my Uncle Barney went to Washington, D.C. when Pope Benedict was in Washington, D.C., and he watched him and all that, and he also had some medallion that was blessed by Pope Benedict, and he put it in my Uncle Kelly's coffin when my Uncle Kelly died. So, and he made sure it was a Catholic funeral and all kinds of stuff, because I don't think my Uncle Kelly really went to church that much and stuff, so I don't know, it's just so weird how important he placed things on in the Catholic Church, and I don't know, it seems like I think he knew a lot more than, you know, than most people know, and I really think that he gave me that Dan Marino jersey because he knew that I was following this type of knowledge, and he knew that there'd be a narrative that I would figure out. He knew that I was going to figure out a piece to this, but I could be wrong. Maybe everything that happened around his death was just all synchronicity, but it just does not seem that way. Especially, getting a letter in the mail, which seemed like synchronicity, but still really fishy to me. Also, the guy James Jumper starting the blog post, and everything, he matches up in reverse. Then 166 days after my birthday, Monograph makes a video, and, he says to watch out for the number 166, and too much to explain, but, later that night on the Gematria Effect, the lady called in, and her name was Mary Toffelmeyer, that equaled 166, and anyway, I'm going to move on, and I want to get to the synchronicity. I hope that makes sense. There's a lot to re-explain, and it's kind of hard to put it all together sometimes, like I said, but the James Jumper guy, too, he started his blog because of my videos about Jeopardy. That's what his first blog post says, right? So it's about Jeopardy, and then his name has the JJ initials, too, James Jumper. And oddly enough, when Alex Trebek got cancer, they announced that. Just after that, we had James Holzhauer. Remember James Holzhauer? They called him Jeopardy James JJ. And in 2016, when I was talking about Jeopardy, I was also mentioning how there was a JJ theme in the media. And then this JJ name makes a blog talking about my blog, and he links it up to Jeopardy. And then we get Jeopardy James when Alex Trebek announces cancer. And his name's James Holzhauer, that equals 63, and he lost on Jeopardy on the date of 6-3, and Alex Trebek announced his cancer on March 6th, 3-6, or also 6-3, and I think it was just before the 36th season of Jeopardy, and it was a bunch of things like that. I should also point out that I also thought Alex Trebek possibly would die on 4/16, which I'll get to, but the reason it's interesting is I've just recently learned that this James Holzhauer guy, his birthday just so happens to be 7/23, which is the same as my Uncle Barney's birthday, 7/23. And in these Francis Bacon ciphers, if I could type here, Jeopardy James equals the Charles Manson numbers, right? 416 as well. 416, 194. Let me just type out Charles Manson here. And remember, I learned about this Charles Manson theme I blogged about it first on January 3rd, but it actually began on New Year's Eve in 2016 when Mariah Carey messed up singing. Anyway, let me move on to this synchronicity so I can explain how it's important to Alex Trebek and other things. So, basically, I've been writing a book, right? And it's been pretty much done for a while. Ironically, the person I'm having edit the book, I messaged them asking them if they were almost finished, and they have coronavirus, and they've been really sick. So they haven't had time to really do it. So I'm waiting on that, and then I'm going to add some pieces, and I got to fix a few parts. But on October 11th, I was contemplating writing a conclusion to the book and sharing this story about my friend Sam and my friend Cisco, and how it involved, basically, I'll explain it here because I'm going to read the conclusion here, but basically it involved me asking God for a friend, and, the 2 minutes after I asked him that at 3 in the morning, 3:19 in the morning, then my friend Sam texted me and asked me about, bloodlines and the Rosicrucians and stuff like that. So I knew that I had a friend. After I asked God, I got this text. But my friend Cisco is the guy I used to make rap beats with, and he is also my Uncle Barney's nephew, but he's my Uncle Barney's nephew on the opposite side. So his mom was a sister to Barney's wife, Betty. And, oddly enough, I don't know if I should even write this on here, but I'm going to anyway, but his name equals 166 in Gematria, just like Barney's name. And after Barney died, I had some synchronicity with him, and these YouTube given like one of our rap videos a copyright claim, and I noticed that his oldest son, or his firstborn son at the time, his name also equaled 166. So I was like, there's got to be something to this, right? And let me just read the conclusion, and it will explain the synchronicity stuff, and then I'll come back and explain a little bit more. But I hadn't written it yet on October 11th. I ended up writing this, October 24th or something like that. But I wrote, there are countless experiences and pieces of information I want to share in this book, but I've honestly made this book much longer than I intended already. I need to get back to making videos and keeping up with what is going on, so I'm forcing myself to end it here. Hopefully this book has at least sparked the process of wanting more knowledge, and has given you the realization that the world is well beyond the simple way most view it. The more minds and ideas we have trying to figure out the truth of our reality, the faster we will find a way to free ourselves from the slavery of it. Since Kabbalah is about understanding God, I'm going to end this book with one last experience in my life that directly involved the concept of God. The funny part is that I was pondering if I should use this experience for the conclusion of the book at work a few days ago, and then I got a text message and a Facebook message the same day from two people involved in the story. I haven't talked to either of them in a good amount of time either, so after this happened, I took it as a sign to end with this story. So the story is on December 17th, 2016. And keep in mind, this is right around the time of the Jeopardy stuff, and James Jumper starting a blog, and my uncle giving me the Dolphins jersey, and then my uncle died, and then I figured out the Charles Manson theme began that year, right around that same time. But December 17th, 2016, I got a copyright claim on a YouTube video that I had uploaded on July 22nd, 2016. And it's this video right here. Let me pull it up really quick. I just want to show you. It's this video right here. And notice it came out I put it on YouTube on July 22nd, 2016. That just happens to be Alex Trebek's birthday. Of all days, Alex Trebek's birthday even. And, in regards to God, look at the cover that we used, right? The Pisces fish that's being hooked, right? And, well, I'll get back to this, but, just think about this in relation to God, right? And it has nothing to do with God. It was actually an atheist rap. He was rapping a lot about atheist concepts. I just made the rap beats. I really didn't do much else. I maybe sang some choruses, but then, he wrote a lot of the music. Anyway, so I used to make music with one of my friends, and it was a video with all of the songs on it. The only reason I uploaded the video was because I was cleaning and I found one of our old CDs. The laptop I used to record everything had a drink spilled on it and ruined the hard drive. My external hard drive also quit working, so I thought I had lost all of our music forever. When I found this CD, I figured I would upload it to YouTube so I would have the songs backed up somewhere. Oddly enough, after I got done uploading the video, my friend texted me asking if I could send him the music files from that album. I had not talked to him in a while, and I explained the situation and how funny it was that I had just found the CD and uploaded it to YouTube. A few weeks after I got the copyright claim on the music video, I received a copyright claim on a different YouTube video I had about the comedian Mitch Hedberg. I put the Mitch Hedberg video out on YouTube 2 years, 24 days before I got the copyright claim, which seemed odd to me. 2 years, 24 days before, later, YouTube all of a sudden gives my video a copyright claim? Why did it take so long for YouTube to do this was my question. As I've explained, YouTube has done this to me multiple times over the years, so I knew it was meaningful. I figured I would look up Mitch Hedberg again, and I noticed that he was born on the date 2/24, which was fitting for why I would get a copyright claim 2 years, 24 days later. I then filed a rebuttal to YouTube saying that the claim was not accurate in hopes they wouldn't delete it for no reason. A few weeks after this copyright claim was when my Uncle Barney had died, so this was a crazy time for me. It's also interesting to note that my friend I made music with is also a nephew to Barney on his wife's side of the family. I'm bringing this up because a few days after he died, YouTube sent me a message saying that the copyright claim on my music video was dropped in response to my rebuttal of the claim. There's a lot more to this I could explain, such as my Mitch Hedberg copyright claim came 318 days after the date 2/24, and at the time a major number of importance to events was 318. We had discovered the number 318 to be connected to God. There was supposedly 318 mentions of the return of Jesus in the New Testament. Also Christ in Gematria sums to 77, and 318 is the 77th day of the year. I noticed a lot of interesting things with my Uncle Barney in relation to the number 318 as well, such as his birthday was 3 months and 18 days before my own birthday. Recall that the number 1012 was super important to my uncle's death as well. It had a lot to do with my name being Dan and him giving me a Dan Marino jersey before he died, and the only time the number 318 is mentioned in the Bible, it speaks about going to the area of Dan. I was later inspired to read Daniel 10:12, and it says, "Then he continued, 'Do not be afraid, Daniel, since the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to them.'" This was the Archangel Gabriel speaking to Daniel in response to his wanting understanding, which is exactly the thing I have been searching for my whole life. On February 22nd, 2017, I got a copyright claim on a different music video that I had put on YouTube. It was the song Goodbye Forever that I recorded with my friend. The difference was that the other video was the full album, and this was just an individual song from the album. I had put some of the songs on YouTube separate like this in 2015 before I lost everything but not all of them. This song was important though because the claim from my full album video was on the part about the song Goodbye Forever too. As I was looking at the new copyright claim, I realized that I had put the video on YouTube on the date 3/18. It seemed that this copyright claim was showing me to pay attention to God, which was very ironic considering the concept of our music was atheist rap. To further this, the picture I used on the video was of the Pisces Jesus fish being caught by a fishing hook. Anyway, I started looking into the gematria of my friend's name and things related to him. I found that his name and his son's name both summed to 166, just like the important number connected to our Uncle Barney. The very next day, on February 23rd, 2017, I got a copyright claim on a different Mitch Hedberg video I had on YouTube. The video I did about Mitch Hedberg was a 2-part video, and the first copyright claim was on the second part. I was now getting a claim on part 1 of the video. I knew there had to be some reason why I kept getting these copyright claims, so I made a blog post about it when I had time, which just so happened to be the date 2/24/2017. In this blog post I wrote about my friend's name and his son's name summing to 166, and a narrative with the age of Aquarius, along with the connections to Mitch Hedberg. I can't remember exactly what I wrote because on 10/6/2017 I got a message from my friend saying I need to delete the post. Apparently his son Googled his own name and found my blog post, which scared him. I really didn't want to delete the post, but I understand why he wanted me to, so I deleted it. What are the odds the post was from 2/24, and he texted me 224 days later, though. Especially when my original Mitch Hedberg claim was 2 years, 24 days after I put the video on YouTube, and Mitch Hedberg's birthday is 2/24. On May 13th, 2017, a few months before I got the text to take down the blog post, I went and hung out with my friend at his mom's house. I'm just now noticing the significance of the date 5/13 as well, because it's the date I mentioned in this book connected to the angel Gabriel, so yet another connection to Gabriel and God. Anyway, I went to my friend's house because they were having a bonfire and drinking in celebration of his sister graduating nursing school. Everyone started going to bed, but my friend's wife and I were still sitting by the fire talking. She brought up something about Donald Trump, so I figured I would drop some knowledge on her. I explained how he was selected and is just a puppet, coded to the wall symbolism, and a lot more. I then told her about the death of my uncle and how her husband and her son were synced to him because of the number 166. Of course, she told me I was like Jim Carrey in the film The Number 23, which, thinking back on it, is hilarious to me. A bit later, we were in the house, and her husband was awake on the couch listening to our conversation. He's still an atheist, and I told him that God is for sure real. It's just not the way most people who believe actually think it is. I left shortly after that on good terms with them, but I have to admit I was annoyed. It gets lonely when you have example after example of this knowledge being true, and everyone around you just can't comprehend it. When I got home, I went upstairs to my bedroom, and I sat down in the chair. I looked up at the ceiling and started talking to God. I said out loud, "Why can't you just let me have at least one person I know understand this too?" I then kept talking and said, "It could be anyone, just someone I can actually talk to in person." I then got a text on my phone less than 2 minutes later at 3:21 a.m. from my friend Sam Moores. The text was about researching bloodlines, going back to ancient Egypt, and how he found stuff about the interpretation of words and symbols. This means he was texting me about this knowledge, and I realized I already had a friend I could talk to. I didn't realize it before because we weren't real close friends. I knew him mostly because of playing music and music projects, and we never really hung out much outside of that. It was a true sign from God, though, whatever God truly is. So, I've actually added more to it since then, but hopefully you get the gist, you know? It was a lot to do with the number 224 and 318. I should point out, too, that my grandma died after my Uncle Barney, and she died 318 days after my birthday in the year 2017 as well. But look at this. My friend Sam, today is actually his birthday, November 15th. And look, my friend Cisco, or Chris Schwery, look at their birthdays. 3 months and 18 days apart. What are the odds of that, you know? 3 months and 18 days apart. Let me go back up here. So, this is why I knew it was important. On October 11th this year, when I was thinking about adding this conclusion to the book, you know, I was just contemplating it, and the next day at work on 10/12, I was telling a coworker how I used to write a bunch of music, and basically that was my whole life, and now I don't write music anymore. And I even told her how I used to make rap beats and so on, and then a few minutes after that, I got a text from my friend Cisco asking me if I wanted to do some emo rap for some young kid and make some rap beats and whatnot. And, you know, and then a few days after that, on October 14th, my friend Sam texted me out of the blue And he's only sent me like 3 or 4 texts in the last few months. And what was so odd about that was if you go from the day that Sam texted me to Cisco's birthday, it's 224 days, right? So their birthdays are 3 months, 18 days apart, and then Sam texted me 224 days after Cisco's birthday. A few days after Sam texted me, I then got a copyright claim, or a YouTube restricted a video of mine. YouTube restricted a video that I put out on 10/11 of 2011. It's this video right here. You know, 10/11 of 2011, they just now age restrict it. And look at the picture. It's of Jesus, right? God, Jesus. This theme that I'm talking about. 318, the important number to God. You know, at Cisco, I was contemplating putting this story in the book on October 11th even. The year 11. Remember how Jesus equals 11 in Gematria? Just want to show you really quick. Jesus equals 11. You know, so this was October 11th of the year 11. Jesus equals 11. The picture is me in my Jesus Halloween costume. Pretty interesting. It even says I have a, look at it. It has 6 likes and 1 dislike. Well, God equals 61. Jesus, is it Jesus Christ, or just Jesus equals 61? God equals 61. Cross equals 61. Church equals 61. You know, Holy Spirit equals 61. They also, I'm trying to think, there was something with 55 on here too. What did I write here? Oh, I had 5.5 subs at the time. 5.5 subscriptions. Of course, God equals 55. Satan equals 55. 5 plus 5 is 10. In Kabbalah, you understand God by understanding the 10 Sephirots on the Tree of Life. It's probably why we use base 10 in math even. I also pointed out that I randomly took the screenshot at 1:14. Right, and that's the day that my Uncle Barney died, and he was synced up to the Chicago Cubs winning the World Series of 2016. For a big long story, I don't want to explain it all, but he went and watched the Cubs in 2005, which was the same year the Astros tied the Reds 114 days before the World Series. And a whole lot more, but my uncle ends up dying on January 14th. He was a big Cubs fan. The Cubs won that World Series, getting their 114th win of the season, and their 114th season being called the Cubs, and a whole lot more. But anyway, I noticed that YouTube gave me this restriction 2 months and 24 days after my Uncle Barney's birthday. And since Cisco had been texting me and whatever, I was just starting to think there's got to be something to do with Jeopardy, or something connected to my Uncle Barney's death. The Jesuits are real important, Jeopardy, and so on. And this post is kind of part of the reason why when Sean Connery died, I wondered if it was connected to Alex Trebek, because he's had cancer for a while. Haven't heard much about him. I wondered if possibly Alex Trebek might die. You know, and especially with Suck at Trebek and everything else. And then, of course, Alex Trebek does die. But let me go back to my post here. So another 2/24, that restriction was 2 months, 24 days after my uncle's birthday. And then on October 27th, I was giving my girlfriend's brother a ride that I talked about in the last video, but I was giving my girlfriend's brother a ride to work, and I was looking at Facebook at the same time, kind of. And, I mean, if you say anything about that, like texting and driving, you've never lived in Iowa. There's literally, like, no cars. It's like, the worst thing I'd be is I'd hit a deer or something, but whatever. I was looking at Facebook kind of while I was driving, and I saw my friend Cisco shared one of our old rap videos right here called Sacrificial Elephants, and I thought it was hilarious. I can't believe I took the screenshot at that time, but hold up. I thought it was hilarious because it was just interesting. It was one of the first things that showed up on my feed, and this song is, the guy Tommy Brown actually sings about Helter Skelter, which is the big Charles Manson thing I've been following, and Helter Skelter. So I knew there was something important. I looked up this video, and I also put this video out on 3/18. And the day that this happened on 10/27 to 3/18 was 142 days, and Charles Manson equals 142. And if you go the other way, it's from 3/18 to 10/27, it's a span of 224 days. And I noticed that this guy, Tommy Brown, and my friend Cisco, their birthdays are 5 months and 25 days apart, and Helter Skelter theory equals 525. That's why the George Floyd story happened on 525, which is 5 months and 25 days before Charles Manson's death anniversary, and much more, So I knew it was important to Charles Manson. I then after I dropped my girlfriend's brother off at work, I went to the gas station across the street that has a McDonald's connected to it. And when I walked in and I saw the sign you had to wear a mask, so I walked back to grab a mask or whatever, and I looked at the ground and I had parked by a McDonald's receipt that said the number 194 on it. And of course, Charles Manson and the Francis Bacon ciphers equals 194. And as I was leaving was when I realized that 3/18 was 224 days before this happened. And I looked over at the gas price, and the gas price was $2.24. And then I typed in my girlfriend's brother in Gematria, and I noticed that his name equaled 194 in the English extended cipher. And then when Sean Connery died, I knew that that was important, because in the English extended cipher, the word moon equals 210. And remember, back in April, I thought that the moon was synced up to Sean Connery possibly dying and so on, right? So the word moon equals 210 in this English extended cipher. Sean Connery died a span of 210 days after Pussy Galore, or the actress Honor Blackman died, who was Pussy Galore in the movie Goldfinger with Sean Connery. And Pussy Galore equals 310. And Sean Connery also died 2 months and 10 days after the anniversary of the Great American Eclipse. And oddly enough, my friend Cisco, his name equals 210 in the Francis Bacon ciphers, and my Uncle Barney's name equals 210 in the Francis Bacon ciphers. Even more ironic is if you go from the day that Pussy Galore died, I just posted this the other day, November, let me find it. But I was looking at the book Goldfinger, because back when Pussy Galore died, I talked about how I was playing guitar and I was playing a song by the band Goldfinger, and it was the song I Feel Like Making Love, which was actually a cover of the band Bad Company, and then the lead singer of Bad Company died like 3 weeks later, if it will ever load here. Oh man. I also mentioned how Weird Al was important because the first concert I've ever went to was Weird Al, and the band that opened up was the band Goldfinger. And think about how Weird Al is the reason that I thought that game shows were scripted. I talked about that at the beginning of this video. So, there's something super important to it, but I guess the moral of the story that I wanted to get was that Honor Blackman, or Pussy Galore, she just so happened to die 2 months and 24 days before the lead singer of the band Goldfinger's birthday, and Honor Blackman in Gematria equals 224. Of course, the lead singer of the band Goldfinger, his full name also equals 318 in Gematria, and the original book of Goldfinger is supposedly 318 pages long. It also has a skeleton with a rose in it, and the rose theme has been important to the Charles Manson theme. The guy who wrote the book is Ian Fleming, and he died on 8/12, but he died in a leap year, but in a non-leap year, 8/12 is the 224th day of the year. I'll come back to this maybe, but I just wanted to point out, I guess, the 224. McDonald's also equals 210, I must have wrote in that post. McDonald's, right? I pull up to McDonald's, I see this thing. So McDonald's equals 210, which fits even more as to why this English extended cipher was important when Sean Connery died and synced up to the moon. But it's also interesting, Alex Trebek then. Alex Trebek dies a span of 3 months and 18 days after his birthday. 318. And his birthday is 7/22. If you take 7 and divide it by 22, it equals 0.318. Right? We've talked about how this is like the opposite of pi, basically, because 22 divided by 7 is 3.14. And if you even write out 22 divided by 7 as words in gematria, it equals 314, a lot like pi. So if you do it the backwards way, 7 divided by 22, it's 0.318. And then Alex Trebek dies a span of 3 months and 18 days after his birthday. James Bond equals 318. Celebrity Jeopardy equals 318. My Uncle Barney's birthday was 3 months, 18 days before mine. He also died 3 months, 18 days after the Jesuit anniversary. Also around the time that he died, I was told that he had about $3 million, and when he died it was going to be divided up between the 18 grandchildren on the Murphy side of the family. And I always wondered why it would only be on that side and not on my friend Cisco's side too, but it's interesting that, 3 million divided by 18 would be, 318, but also that's $166,666. And remember how my Uncle Barney equaled 166, and James Jumper 166, and Reverse Gematria 166, and the Flintstones aired 166 episodes. Of course, when before my Aunt Betty died, she changed the will, and she gave all the money to her brothers and sisters, so no big deal, I don't even care, but I'm still poor, so. There's also a bunch of other 318 then. Like I said, my grandma died 318 days after my birthday, the same year that Barney died. There was that big Jesus theme and so on. I actually did write Keon Carpenter in here, huh? I forgot I even discovered that. So much information, but. Remember how I said the host of Idiot Test, he started following me on Twitter? And he became my 114th follower, and then my uncle died on January 14th. At the Jesuit University, and so on. Look at the host of Idiot Test's name in Gematria. Ben Glebe, 318 in the Francis Bacon cipher. Idiot Test equals 127, and he started following me on January 27th on Twitter. It's also 201, the big Jesuit number. He followed me 224 days after his birthday, and the first episode of Idiot Test was on the 224th day of the year. And something that I pointed out a long time ago with this number 224 is if you put a "the" in front of it, the Society of Jesus equals 224. So I'm just positive my uncle's death, it's definitely synced up to the Catholic Church, and when I was a little kid, he was my sponsor for my confirmation, and that was when we had Father Howard, the guy who we've always joked molested me. And then he did get busted for molesting a kid in 2014. And, in 2017 I had a bunch of crazy synchronicity with all the priests at my church. Well, I don't know. I don't want to re-explain it, but it was all about the number 63. Like, Father Howard got kicked out of the church after 35 years of being in the church, the word Catholic 35, but he was age 63. And the story about him came on June 30th, 630. And the priest after him was Father Paul. Father Paul was a Jesuit, and he died at the age of 63 in a bathtub on the Jesuit residence at Creighton, 6 months and 3 days after the Jesuit anniversary. And a bunch more. A lot of the other priests in my town, like Father Fred, he died on the 63rd day of the year. And that's why I thought it was important when James Holzhauer equaled 63, and he lost on Jeopardy on 6-3, and my uncle died at the age of 63. And that's how I knew it was synced up to the Jesuits and the Catholic Church. Further, I know that Alex Trebek dying is important to this stuff with my uncle, because on the same day that he died, These were the headline stories on ESPN. Ravens Jackson ties Marino for the best start by quarterback. Quarterbacking 101, Mahomes tops Marino mark. Right? So there's two stories that involved Dan Marino on ESPN that day, the same day that Alex Trebek died. What are the odds of that, you know? And, you know, like I said, back then, Flipper was really important around the time of, you know, whatever, flipping the script and reverse gematria. Also, I looked up the band Flipper, and the guitarist was Ted Falcone, right? Think about how the Falcons made the Super Bowl. And I also talked about the Key of David in a Miami Dolphins post because my uncle gave me that jersey. And I was watching the Nirvana video Come As You Are, and an ad about like Big Jesus or something popped up. And, you know, then Keon Carpenter, the ex-Atlanta Falcons player, died, and a whole lot more. But moral of the story is, just seeing all this, I wanted to type in Miami Dolphins again in gematria, and look at Miami Dolphins equal the exact same thing as Charles Manson in gematria, right? Like identical. 194, 282, 261, 416, 142, 209. I think there was some other ones, but you know, and remember that I discovered the Charles Manson theme right around the same time that my uncle died, the same time that I was following the Miami Dolphins like crazy. And I don't think that the Miami Dolphins are going to go to the Super Bowl this year, but if they do, that would be phenomenal. But from what I've learned over studying this, most often the synchronicity that I have, it's not for the actual team that I'm following it through. You know, like the Houston Rockets this year, it was all synced up to the Lakers and the Kings symbolism. And it's also synced up to China, which is still really important, but we'll see what happens, you know. But it's interesting that Miami Dolphins equal all of these Charles Manson numbers. Also, Dan Marino, he's from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He went to the Catholic high school, and he played at the University of Pittsburgh. And it just reminds me of when Zach posted this post about Amazon calling him from Pittsburgh, California. And that was on September 15th, which is Dan Marino's birthday. But Pittsburgh equals 166 as well. And around the time that my uncle died, I also mentioned the Pittsburgh Steelers because of Tim Tebow's kneeling game and the 316 game. But I also pointed out that Ben Roethlisberger played at Miami, Ohio. He played college at Miami, Ohio. So it's just interesting. You know, there's a relationship between the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are having a good season. Alex Trebek equals the same as Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Steelers equal the same as Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So there's something interesting with them, but honestly, I think the team that I'm really following, you know, because I feel like it's too obvious, right? Pittsburgh. I feel like and I've documented some other things about the Steelers with my synchronicity and so on, and just from what I've learned over studying this for years, the synchronicity is never tied to the team, and I'm wondering if it, you know, the Charles Manson theme, right? Very important to the Blackbird, right? The Blackbird is the Raven. And remember, the Atlanta Falcons' old logo used to be the Blackbird as well. So after my uncle died, the Falcons make the Super Bowl. They're the Blackbird. They're the red and black team that was synced up to the Jesuits and the Cardinals. But, you know, so the same day that, I'm trying to find it here. I know I have a post on it. The same day that Alex Trebek died, the Dolphins beat the Cardinals, and it's just interesting, last time the Steelers won, they beat the Cardinals in the Super Bowl that was held in Tampa, and this year the Super Bowl is held in Tampa Bay as well, so I mean, there's some interesting layers here, but the Ravens are the Blackbird, and, you know, with my Aunt Betty dying earlier this year, let me find the post about my Aunt Betty dying. because it involved the number 416. Actually, you know what? A better way to find it is February 5th. Video is already long enough. There we go. So my Aunt Betty died, and I pointed out that she died 4 months and 16 days after her birthday. And then the obituary also mentions her daughter. Her daughter died, and her birthday was 4/16. So Betty dies 4 months and 16 days after her birthday, which also is on 20/9. And, Charles Manson equals 209. Charles Manson also equals 52, like February 5th, 5/2. But her daughter Chrissy was born on 4/16. Her daughter Chrissy also died on the same... She died on October 15th, which is my brother's birthday. And it's also the same day that my Uncle Kelly died. The first of the siblings of my Uncle Barney to die, right? He died on the day that Barney's daughter died. And her birthday was 4/16. Her mom died 4 months and 16 days after her birthday. And remember, Barney went and saw Pope Benedict, and Pope Benedict was born on 4/16. And Charles Manson equals 416. Miami Dolphins equal 416. My Uncle Kelly, he died in 2013, which was the year that Pope Benedict stepped down and Pope Francis became the new pope. And in that year, that was the year following the Batman shooting on the moon landing, and the Baltimore Ravens went on to win that Super Bowl, right? And it was all about the number 34 and much, much more. But the Baltimore Ravens won that Super Bowl. That's why last year, the coach of the Baltimore Ravens, John Harbaugh, he went and visited Pope Francis or whatever. Even Pope Francis even has a Ravens jersey now, a Lamar Jackson jersey, right? John Harbaugh was born on 9/23, which was the day that Pope Francis visited the White House when he came to America and he arrived on his 923rd day as Pope, and so on, right? The Philadelphia train wreck at 9:23 p.m., the movie Trainwreck that starts with Amy Schumer's character being 9 years old, and the rest of the movie takes place 23 years later, and the movie has LeBron James in it, and LeBron James equals 923. So it just makes me wonder, right? They're important to the Catholic. Think about Baltimore and Maryland, right? The area of Washington, D.C. was supposedly owned by a guy named Francis Pope back in the day. Maryland also, part of the original Catholic colony, and so on. So this year's really big with the Jesuits. It just seems like, to me, it seems like the Ravens are more of a team to follow, because of all this. And what's interesting in Gematria, Ravens equal 165 in Francis Bacon, and so does John Harbaugh. Pretty sure John Harbaugh, he equals 165 and 224. Interesting, right? John Harbaugh, Ravens equal 165 in this. And also, if you type out Super Bowl LV, it equals 165. Also 132, just like Catholic Church, just like England, just like United States of America, just like how Princess Diana died 132 days after Queen Elizabeth's birthday. Oh, the odds. It's also interesting to point out in regards to that, Prince Charles's birthday was November 14th, which is the 318th day of the year in a non-leap year. And Princess Diana died on 31/8, 318, these God numbers that I'm talking about. So the Super Bowl this year is also held on the 38th day of the year. Ravens equal 38. Pretty sure Francis equals 38. Or no, Francis doesn't equal 38, but Pope Francis became the Pope 38 days after the Ravens won the Super Bowl in 2013. That's what it was. So just interesting. This year the Super Bowl's on the 38th day of the year. Ravens 38. If the Ravens do win, I wonder if Pope Benedict will die. Or something like that, you know. If they don't win, then who knows. But still interesting how it syncs up to Pope Benedict, who, you know, his real name is also Joseph Ratzinger. That equals 191, like Society of Jesus. You know. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit, but I want to go back to this post where I summarized a whole bunch of stuff. And it's funny because when I was writing this post, like just summarizing some of these things going on, that same day, the very first customer that came into the store was wearing a shirt that said 42 Universe Life and Everything on it. And it had the Vesca Piscis on it and so on, right? But that's obviously from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but where they say 42 is that, right? For the secret of life and so on. And the computer that says that is a computer named Deep Thought. Let's point this out really quick, but Deep Thought equals 42, right? So does computer. Or so does internet, and so does Bill Gates, and whatever else, right? So, perfect, the number 42. It also comes just seconds shy of 42 minutes into the movie, but, you know, of course, Jesus important to the Vesca Piscis, and the shape of the Pisces fish. The word fish is 42, and the New Testament begins with the 42 generations leading up to Jesus, and New Testament's 42. But anyway, that guy came in, and a bit later I got to go to the kitchen and work, and my Aunt Mary now works there. And I noticed she was digging through this box, and it had the big number 224 on it. And at the same time, I looked over, and she was talking to the Pepsi deliverer, or whatever you call him, the guy who brings the Pepsi in, and the cart that he was pushing was also the number 224 written on it. And I was like, what are the odds? And my cousin, who is helping me edit the book that I'm working on, I noticed on Facebook her name's Megan Alice, so I assume that is her middle name. And if it is, it's interesting because that means her name equals 224 in Jamont in these Francis Bacon ciphers. And forever I've been thinking about calling the book The Synchronistic, just because Zenith left a comment about me being a synchro-mystic at one point, and I thought it sounded cool, you know? It's like, you are a synchro-mystic. And I'm like, huh, that's pretty cool. But the synchro-mystic equals 224. Think about how I was thinking about ending it with a story about 224. I didn't even realize that equaled 224 at the time. And I was going to add like another caption, which like understanding the world through signs, symbols, letters, and numbers, that just so happens to equal, if you add all that up, it equals 1012, right? The number connected to the 318 and 1012, and it's crazy. You know, I don't even plan it, and it just all works out that way. And it's all somehow related to God, you know, whatever God truly is. I still don't fully understand the whole aspect of it, but I sometimes wonder if somehow there's, you know, magic or something being used against me to make me believe that this is God too, you know. So that's why I'm always going to question things. I'm always going to, you know, if it truly was God, then why is everything written so, why are all of these things riddles always, you know? But then I start thinking about how Jesus spoke in parables, and, you know, maybe that's just how this knowledge works. You have to understand it by other means, you know. You see these obvious things that are related to other things. The number 224 has also been a really big number that I've talked about this year. Like Kobe Bryant. Remember how his tribute was on 224 because his number is 24 and his daughter's was number 224. Kobe Bryant in the Francis Bacon ciphers just so happens to equal 224. Also 209 like Charles Manson, also 312 like the big Jesuit number. Michael Jordan also equals 224 in these Francis Bacon ciphers. And remember how Toronto is the 416 area code, and Toronto Raptors, it's actually in the regular ones here, Toronto Raptors equal 224, Think about Kobe's 81-point game and how the Raptors won the championship just before Kobe Bryant died. Think how Kobe Bryant returned from his Achilles injury on Dwight Howard's birthday, 12/8, and, they played the Toronto Raptors, the team he scored 81 points against. And he scored that 81 points on 122. Kobe went to Catholic Church. 122 is Pope Francis's birthday. Pope Francis equals 122. Kobe also finished his career against the Utah Jazz. That equaled 224, right? Also 155, like coronavirus. Right? So they were also, Rudy Gobert was the first player to get coronavirus and much, much more, right? But Utah Jazz, the Legend of Chamberlain Heights episode where Kobe dies in a helicopter crash, that came out 2 months and 24 days after Kobe's birthday. And Kobe just so happened to die, I think 2 months and 10 days after the anniversary of that episode. And Kobe died 210 days before his own birthday, right? 210, 224, some numbers I've talked about in this video previously. Remember how Kobe Bryant was also synced up to Will Smith, right? And Will Smith was the Fresh Prince. Maybe it's these ones. The non-Francis Bacon. The Fresh Prince equals 224. Think about it. The Legend of Chamberlain Heights. Wilt Chamberlain. Will Smith. Wilt Chamberlain, went to the same high school as Will Smith, Overbrook High School in Philadelphia, where Kobe's from. Wilt Chamberlain died in Bel Air, California. Just think about the relationship there. Think about how the World Series was really important to the two guys named Will Smith as well. I know, I talked about this somewhere else. Let me find my post here. I think it was at the end of this post here. This 224 has actually been a big number pretty much all year. The Franciscan order that Pope Francis got his name from, they were founded on 224, 811 years ago. The Society of Jesus, 224. My grandpa died on 310 this year. He was an American Legion Post 224, at least in his obituary. And the Fresh Prince is 224. It's also interesting to note that Will Smith, his real name is Willard Carroll Smith Jr. That equals the Jesuit numbers, 312, but must be in this here, the Francis Bacon ones. Willard Carroll Smith Jr. equals 416, right? This important number. And when my Aunt Betty died, I talked about a bunch of connections to Kobe Bryant, right? It was all about Kobe Bryant. I also talked about my other aunt, Aunt Lorraine, who is Barney's sister, who had cancer, and her name equaled 201, and she was at the hospital where they brought the people from the Diamond Princess ship that had coronavirus, and that hospital's name equaled 201. And I just talked about Kobe Bryant a whole lot, and then my aunt Lorraine ended up dying all synced up to Kobe Bryant. Like, she died on 4/23, I think it was. 4/22, the 113th day of the year, and she was born on 11/3, and Kobe Bryant equals 113, and a whole bunch more, right? So I knew she was going to die in connection to Kobe Bryant, and she died, like, super synced up to Kobe Bryant. But I'm just mentioning this because, Will Smith and 4/16, Charles Manson synced up to 4/16, Pope Benedict born on 4/16. Miami Dolphins have that connection to 4/16. Will Smith's name, 4/16. Alex Trebek, too. I also thought, back when they announced his cancer, I thought a good day for him to die would be 4/16 because he announced his cancer 4 months and 16 days before his birthday, and April 16th would have been 41 days after his birthday, and Jeopardy equals 41, and pancreas equals 41. He had pancreas cancer, so he didn't actually die on that day, but it's interesting how that number is important, right? 4/16, so Also, Jeopardy James equaling 416, and you remember how he lost on 6-3, and Trebek announced his cancer on 3/6, and before the 36th season of Jeopardy. It's also interesting, I was waiting for November 12th, because that's Charles Manson's birthday, and I figured there'd be something important to it. And CNN had this headline story about Kaylee Kuko or whatever in The Big Bang Theory. And it was really just a pointless article, but it was about her filming sex scenes. And I knew it was important to click on because when Charles Manson died, it was synced up to a theme with the film Stand By Me, and it was also related to The Big Bang Theory. So I clicked on it, wondering if there was something important. And when I was watching the video, before the video came up, an ad for this movie called Alex Rider came up, and it is a movie basically just like James Bond, right? And I was like, what are the odds? That's pretty weird. And I looked up the movie, or the TV show, I think it is, and it said it was written by this guy right here, Anthony Horowitz. And if you read more about him, you find out that he was actually, let me see if it says it in here. He was chosen to write James Bond novels by Ian Fleming's estate, starting with Trigger Mortis in 2015. So this guy also wrote James Bond books, right? And the first book that he wrote, Trigger Mortis, the setting is 2 weeks after the film Goldfinger, and it has the return of Pussy Galore in it. And oddly enough, Pussy Galore just so happened to die on this guy's birthday, right? She died on his 65th birthday in 2020. But what I thought was interesting too was, I started thinking about it, I was driving, how I drive my girlfriend's brother to work. I have to go, you go all the way to Erling, Iowa, which is interesting because that's where the first famous exorcism in the United States took place that I've talked about before. But then when you get there, you take the road M16. And, M16 looks a lot like MI6. And I always thought that the British spy agency was called M16. But looking at it further here, let's just see here. Look at that. I mean, it looks a lot like M16. I don't know. For the longest time, I thought that said M16, not MI6. And somebody commented and pointed out that it's actually MI6. And it's still interesting. It still syncs up. But, I'm driving my girlfriend's brother to work on M16. And I'm thinking that it's connected to James Bond, right? M16, the British spy agency. That's actually MI6. And this has happened to me before. For some reason, years ago, I always thought that a wolverine was the same as a wolf, right? Like a pack of wolves, right? Wolverine. But a wolverine is just a completely different animal. But even me thinking that it was synced up like that, I talked about the Michigan Wolverines and how they're synced up to the same narrative, and they were still synced up to it, I was talking about Lupercalia, the Wolf Festival. Lupercalia equals 98, so is Michigan Wolverines. 98. Tom Brady equals 98. He became the starter in Michigan in the year 98. Is it Patriots equal 98? Patriots equal 98. Jim Harbaugh equals 98. So, regardless that I thought it was wrong, it's still right, if that makes sense, because that's the way that I perceived it, The sync still works, and that's what I try to get across to people, too, with a lot of these synchronicity things, They are still important, but the reason it's important is MI6. M can be broken down to 4, right? M, 416, right? M16, 416. And the very next day, the major headline story after documenting about this Secret Service, the Secret Service supposedly has coronavirus now, right? I wonder if they're going to tell us their names, the Secret Service, but What are the odds I document about the British Secret Service the next day? The major story is that the Secret Service has coronavirus. And Secret Service equals 83, James Bond equals 83. They were established 155 years ago. Coronavirus equals 155. This story came out 132 days after that establishment date. Catholic Church, England, United States, and so on, right? I wonder, I never looked, but there's probably something important to Friday the 13th as well in regards to that, you know. But then I had the comment that telling me about it's not M16, it's MI6. And I was just like, it's mind-blowing. I even mentioned the stuff about Lupercalia and Michigan and whatnot. And then I started thinking MI is the abbreviation for Michigan, right? So I was like, I wonder if there's something important to Michigan. And I went back and just looked it up, right? Jim Harbaugh equals 194, the Charles Manson numbers. So does Tom Brady. Tom Brady also equals 194, the Charles Manson numbers, and Francis Bacon. His full name is James Joseph Harbaugh, that equals 187, like Society of Jesus. He's also 56 years old, like Society of Jesus. And then I discovered John Harbaugh, his brother, who coaches the Ravens, equals 224 and 165, just like Ravens and Super Bowl LV. And then CNN, I went to CNN, and CNN had this article about the return of the Fresh Prince. The Fresh Prince, Will Smith dropped the reunion trailer that's going to be airing on November 19th, which is Charles Manson's death anniversary. I was like, I just talked about the Fresh Prince equaling 224 and that being important on here. They also put a bunch of importance on Uncle Phil on this, James Avery, who died in 2013. And, you know, he died just after Paul Walker, and his birthday was the same day Paul Walker died, I believe. But there was a major Phil theme going on. If you followed my Rose videos and my previous videos, I talked about Phil and Philip, meaning being a lover of horses and so on. So I wonder if there's something important to that. He was Uncle Phil, and they had a story about Phil on Duck Dynasty hating gay people. And then they announced that Philip Seymour Hoffman died the day of the Super Bowl, while on the pregame show, a singer named Philip Phillips was singing. Think about the Broncos, who are a horse, and they got destroyed by the Seattle Seahawks in that Super Bowl. So, I don't know the full meaning, but I'm going to watch this documentary, or this reunion when it comes out, because I feel like there's something important to it. Especially coming out on Charles Manson's death day on November 19th. So, 416, I don't know. Let me look at Pope Benedict. I want to see what Pope Benedict is, then I'll just end it, but I know the video is long and confusing. Pope Benedict equals 166 as XVI. Pope Benedict 210 and 114. This number is connected to the Society of Jesus. I don't know. There's something important to him, so I never even looked him up, but Pope Benedict XVI. .416 birthday. How old is he? 93? I don't know. I'll have to look more into it, but I know there's something important to this guy. Pope Francis. He became the longest-lived pope, 93 years, 4 months, and 16 days, surpassing Leo X. Whoa, craziness. So his birthday is 4/16. He's the longest-lived pope after 4 months and 16 days after his birthday on 4/16. On September 4th, which can be written as 9/4, like how Jeopardy equals 94. This guy died on July 20th, the anniversary of the Batman shooting. anniversary of the moon landing. Let's see what he equals in Gematria. 318 and 2 of them, and 264. This James Bond number I'm talking about. Jesus. Literally. Oh my god. I got more to look up now, but 83. James Bond. I don't know. This guy just has so many interesting things about it. Look at this. Well, I think I already highlighted it. Hold on, but look at his name equals 191, like Society of Jesus. He died in the year 78, like how Jesuit equals 78. Oh wait, no, he became the Pope in the year 78. But Jesuit 78, on 220, the Jesuits were founded, or approved by the 220th Pope, and Pope Francis's birthday is 2 months and 20 days after the Jesuit anniversary, and Donald John Trump equals 220, and Prince Charles equals 220, and a whole lot more. You know, it's a big number synced up to the Jesuits. Remember, Prince Charles, when he got married to Camilla, they had to change the wedding date because Pope John Paul II had died as well. So, he's also known as the Rosary Pope. Think about the rose theme I'm talking about. The Rosary Pope. It's kind of interesting. I guess I need to do more research into this, but remember a while back too, Pope Benedict, in 2018, they had an article saying that he was preparing for home. And the interesting thing about that is, if you write out home, it equals 93, and he's currently 93 years old. It also equals 93 in Jewish Gematria. That story came 9 months and 23 days after his birthday. Think about Pope Francis in 923. It also came 313 days before Pope Francis's birthday. And before Pope Francis's birthday, and Pope Francis became the Pope on 313 and so on, right? I also pointed out here that I was talking about Saturn and whatnot, but 416 to the Jesuit anniversary is 164 days. I was talking about 511, but interesting, it's 164, this other number I'm talking about with James Bond. And I forgot to point out that Super Bowl also equals 164. So, interesting that he would say that. He's ready for home. Huh. So quite possibly, maybe he is going to die this year, or what, at the age of 93. We'll see. I don't know. It just makes me wonder. I know these Francis Bacon ciphers are important. I need to look more into some things with it, especially this guy. I don't know that much about, but a lot of interesting things about this guy. So I'm going to leave the video there, though. I have a ton of other crap I have to do today, but and I really hope it's a long video. It probably won't make sense to most people, but it doesn't really matter because I could make it so simple, and you know, we're pretty much screwed. If somebody wants to know this knowledge, they're going to find it. If not, it doesn't matter. I've shown the simplest things over and over to people constantly, and they just one ear and out the other. You know, I say this all the time, but it's so ridiculous. Like, especially like my friend Cisco. I actually went to his house and recorded, or played guitar at least, for rap beats and whatnot, and I'm telling him all this stuff. I'm like, you know, that post you made me delete, it was all about the number 224 and Mitch Hedberg and my copyright claim 2 years and 24 days later, and his birthday's 224, and then you messaged me to take down that blog post 224 days later. And he's like, oh, well, that doesn't mean anything, you know? And you're like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, I explained the Buffy the Vampire Slayer stuff and how Buffy, you know, it was synced up to the number 310 and the TV show aired on 310, and then 3 months and 10 days later Luke Perry died, and he's like, well, 3 months and 10 days, but how many days is that? You're just changing it to something else. I'm like, the only ones I ever really use are the months and the days and then the amount of days. So, you know, that's a 2 out of 365 chance. It's like a 0.5% that Luke Perry would die, you know, a 0.5%. You know, more people are dying from coronavirus that you're scared of than the odds that this would happen, but... Or like you say, you know, Flight 77 at the 77-foot-tall Pentagon exactly 77 minutes after takeoff. On the 77th meridian and September 11th is 77, and World Trade Centers equals 77, and so on. And then he'll go, well, it wasn't going 77 miles an hour, so that defeats that pattern. You know, it's just like, but there's a pattern that exists, and there's more to follow it. There's a narrative and everything else. It's just like, I get what he's saying, but it's like, my God, you don't get all of these other very, very simple things, you know, coronavirus 56, toilet paper 56, Anthony Fauci 56, you know, like, the list goes on. How do you not get this? But most people don't, so it doesn't really matter. If they want to know it, they'll come and find it, but... Oh, I guess whatever. Have a good one. Peace.